Today's presentation is about decentralized identity and how decentralized identity can be used to implement a simple and trustworthy identity verification platform. My name is Steve Bolt. I'm a senior consultant with Cocho in the external identity team. And without further ado, let's get cracking. In today's session, we will cover the problems with traditional identity solutions, the decentralized identity platform that has risen its head, and what are verifiable credentials and how those verifiable credentials can help you. We'll also be looking at what has recently been added feature-wise in the Verified ID solution provided by Microsoft since it went GA last year. And then finally, before any questions, we will look at some use cases in the industries that I see could be a good way of approaching your customer base. So, 130 billion daily authentications in Azure AD. That number is huge. It's not just your employees, it's your business-to-business relationships. Might even be third-party vendors or contractors you work with. Another stat is that there's 25.6 billion attempts to hijack enterprise accounts between January and December of 2021. It's no surprise that digital identity is a prime target for cybercrime and ransomware attacks. And those compromised and fraudulent credentials are a very real and critical threat to public and private organizations today. The current challenges in the industry are that data is governed by the organizations. They're spread across countless entities, websites, employers, and this leads to a greater risk of fraud or even breach. People once kept their valuable digital documents under lock and key. When I joined Cocho, they took a scan of my passport. I'd like to hope that HR have treated that well, but that's my identity and Cocho are managing it. It's not my control, it's theirs. Companies are questioning whether it's even worth capturing and managing personal identifiable data because regulations are increasing. GDPR is one example. And of course, recently, the pandemic has had a huge challenge on traditional identity verification process. It just was impossible to come into an office and scan a passport. From moving from an office-based to a hybrid or even fully remote environment, even more companies were challenged with the joiner movers leavers process in what was called the Great Resignation. Of course, the problem with this is that users typically have to retype this information whenever dealing with a new organization or vendor or website or social media platform. Users can provide information or grant consent without the user being in control. And it's very complicated to exchange data between organizations securely and even revoke that information once the user has left or is no longer relevant. Introducing decentralized identity. Decentralized identity allows you to have your identity under your control. Before we go any further, I just want to point out some terms. If I speak about DID or DIDs, I'm talking about decentralized identifiers. These are the things that are kept on the public record to verify and issue credentials securely. When we talk about verified ID, this is Microsoft's implementation of the open standards. VC is a verifiable credential, and when I reference a VC, we're talking about the digital credential that the user owns, not the previous name for verified ID service. As a quick intro, I have a video here which will outline how this looks and puts the users in control of their identity.
However, only a select few, like government IDs and credit cards, are widely accepted. Our society has established global norms for how we present and verify the credentials these physical cards represent. But there's no real equivalent for digital credentials. Why not? First, there's no standard mechanism for issuing digital cards. To issue universally acceptable digital cards or credentials, we need digital identifiers that individuals can own, independent of any entity, organization, or institution. Currently, we use email addresses and phone numbers as identifiers to access websites and apps. But our access to these identifiers and our personal information is at the mercy of service providers who can revoke them at any time. Secondly, there are no universally accepted standards for expressing, exchanging, and verifying digital credentials across organizational boundaries. This is all about to change. A new form of digital identity based on emerging standards such as verifiable credentials and decentralized identifiers can enable such digital credentials to work everywhere, be more trustworthy, and respect privacy. Here's how it works. Meet Alice. Her new digital wallet empowers her to own and control credentials. Since it's not tied to any one organization, authoritative sources can confidently issue standards-based credentials to Alice. When Alice presents these credentials, websites and apps can check that they're valid, for example, by confirming with a university that she's a student there, and then grant access accordingly. While this process may be easier, how do we know it's trustworthy? Decentralized identifiers leverage proven cryptographic systems. When Alice presents her credentials, her digital wallet generates a unique identifier and signs it using a private key, secured by a biometric proof or PIN that only she knows. The uniquely paired public key is published to a distributed ledger. Alice can present her digital student ID card to a bookstore, and before granting a discount, the bookstore can confirm that the university issued the card to Alice. This experience mimics what Alice does today. She can digitally present and authenticate a set of verifiable credentials just as she would present a physical card. And she can revoke them with a single click, just as she would return a card to her wallet. Best of all, these digital cards are private. This puts Alice in sole control of her digital identity. She makes the decisions for it. Verifiable credentials will make it easier to stay in control and help unlock a more trustworthy internet that respects privacy for all of us.
Hopefully that Microsoft video was educational to how this can help the user. But as businesses, it is slightly different. Let's step through the process. We have an issuer on the left, Contoso University, who will issue a credential to a wallet. That could be the Microsoft Authenticator app. That credential will say that I passed a certain degree, what my grade was, and what year I graduated. When I go to an employer, Cocho, and I say that I graduated in a certain university, they might ask for proof of that. I can present that credential from my wallet to Cocho, and they can verify it. As you can see from this slide, we're going left to right. We're not going back to Contoso University to verify. So how do we securely do that? Well, this is where the trust system comes in. To protect security and integrity, verifiable credentials are digitally signed by the issuer. When a verifier receives a verified credential, they're able to verify the signature of their credential to ensure it has been issued by the real issuer, Contoso University in this case, and it hasn't been tampered with. The verifier therefore requires access to the issuer's public keys. The public key infrastructure required to verify verifiable credentials is provided by another open standard known as decentralized identifiers. Each issuer, subject, and verifier creates a unique DID, or decentralized identifier, and is associated with a set of public keys. The issuer's public keys are made publicly available so that the verifier can validate the credential produced by the issuer. When we talk about this solution and being one way, there are certain rules that play a part of that. You have the user who requests a credential from an issuer. In the previous case, that was the university. Then the issuer of the credential attests that the user has provided accurate and correct information and creates the verified credential that is signed with the decentralized identifiers. This is then put on the trust system, the decentralized ledger. Then the verifier asks the user to present that credential, and some time may have passed, years. Once the user approves this request and to share that information, the verifier then validates the credential by matching it with the public key pasted in the public record. All of this is based on open standards. The decentralized identity system comes in two flavors, the ION and the web flavor. You have a user agent or a wallet. This can be the Microsoft Authenticator app. You have resolvers that will connect to the decentralized ledgers and look up that key information. There's also a decentralized identity verifiable credential service provided by Microsoft to wrap all this and make it a lot easier to integrate with. So where does this sit? Hopefully we've all heard of the new rebrand of Microsoft Entra, a collection of suite of services offered by Microsoft. Under that becomes AAD, permissions management, and the latest Verified ID service. Within Verified ID, you can create credentials to issue to users. With those credentials, there's a set of sample code that you can run and get started with quite quickly. And using the Microsoft Authenticator app, you can issue, store, and verify these credentials. In your organization, verifiable credentials allows you to issue easily, to verify credentials confidently, and of course to use them anywhere. Your partners can use your credentials to offer discounts, gym memberships, or benefit platforms. For the end user experience, it's easy to use. The wallet has all of the credentials in the one place. And if you use a Microsoft Authenticator, which most of us have already, this isn't a new process for them. It's just a new area. It's verifiable, ways for you to confirm sharing your data and information with who you want or don't want. you don't have to share it. That's the brilliance of decentralized identity. It's transparent. You're able to see all the information being shared before you share it. And it's convenient. It's convenient for you to do all of this in one place. Ultimately, decentralized identity allows you to have a trustworthy, faster, cheaper way to verify. For onboarding employees, a faster time to hire employees, a faster time for them to be productive, to start work. It reduces tedious proofing processes in work and in real life. Credential portability for mobile workers, transfers or new hires. NHS, for example, who might go to different districts and work in different areas. Enables employees, partners and contractors to quickly verify credentials for access to sensitive resources that might have advanced security requirements, such as security clearance. It can work with existing enterprise management in Azure AD. You can have more secure workflows and better access for external users. It allows you to recover accounts more quickly. It reduces the help desk calls and approval fatigue. It allows for faster self-service account recovery and password resets. And of course, should that user leave, you can revoke it immediately, and that's visible to all partners. On a broader scale, this has the freedom for developers to be innovative on an open standard-based platform. For new employees, it allows a trustworthy self-service enrollment and faster onboarding by digitally validating information with industry-leading ID verification providers. It enhances the experience for those employees through fast, transparent, and remote capable onboarding. And once they're on board, you can issue them a workplace credential that they can use for training material, IT equipment, or even employee perks. You can use verifiable credentials to secure access to applications. It doesn't have to be the whole application. You might subset a specific area, such as an HR system or a highly confidential part of your application, where if the user wants to see that information, they have to provide that credential before you allow them. This can be one time, or it can be every time that they look at that site. Account recovery. You can reduce your phone calls to support and reliance on security questions with a simpler and more secure process to verify identity. I've been using passwordless for well over a year, and if I lose my phone or it's stolen, I will not know what my password is because it's been that long. With verifiable credentials, I can download a backup from Microsoft Authenticator, go onto the Coacha website, and prove my identity with a verifiable credential to reset my password instead of having to phone up our help desk and going through all the processes required to verify my identity remotely. Verified ID went globally available in August of 2022. Since then, there has been a number of enhancements. The two biggest, verified coupons and entitled management with verifiable credentials. Verified coupons allows you to specify a limit on the number of times a credential can be presented per day. or per user, or even per credential. In the example on screen, you've got Wicklow University student who's using their student card to access a free cup of coffee. Wicklow Coffee can notify students to come back next week when attempting to redeem an additional cup that they're not eligible for. We've all seen voucher codes and promo codes that have been printed out on leaflets. Why not use verifiable credentials instead of these codes that people have to enter? They can be one time, so it can be redeemed once with your website, but still allow it to be used with affiliates. Wine52, for example, for HelloFresh. Entitled management with verifiable credentials allows you to ask for a credential when requesting access to certain applications. When you're setting up a new access package, you can add this credential. You can search from a list of users on the decentralized identity platform and select the credentials that they allow you to present and verify. When a user requests access through the Access Packages portal, they will see the resources that they're requesting access to, but also they'll be prompted to say that they'll need a credential to continue requesting access. Once they continue, they'll be asked to scan a QR code that will be on their Microsoft Authenticator app, which then shows the credentials that they need to provide. Once this has been provided and request for access has been requested, the normal access package route still is in place. So you can have gated access, approvers, etc. But you've got more control because now you have a verifiable credential. This feature for entitled management went public preview on the 23rd of Feb. So we talked about discounted or free coffee, but you could get discounted IT equipment or discounted football or rugby tickets if you belong or play for a club. Discount on Just Eat if you work for them or an affiliate organization. There's a disconnect between RAC, the AA and Green Flags call centers, and the mobile breakdown recovery mechanic that arise on site. Verified ID could bridge that gap on both ends. The call center could verify credentials to avoid going through the security questions or know your customer experience. And the mechanic who arrives, they can request verification to ensure that you're not phoning on behalf of a mate who doesn't have membership. Verifiable credentials could be used as proof of purchase. When the new iPhone comes out, you can buy it online, a verifiable credential is issued, and when the phone's ready to pick up in the Apple Store, you can go and present that credential. This is then verified by Apple and the iPhone is received, but it can go further now. It can bleed in the after sales, free Apple TV, free Apple Music, or even streamlining a warranty enrollment process. Administrating physical fuel cards is expensive. They can be abused, passed around between people, used when the employee leaves, even lost or stolen. Moving to a digital verifiable fuel card allows them to be revoked instantly, issued cheaply via workplace credential, and not be clonable, lost or stolen. You can use verifiable credentials to prove your certifications, your achievements, or proof of education. So when your next employer, or if you just want to brag, wants to verify that you have those achievements, they can do so securely. If you want to learn more about decentralized identity, there's a few links on screen. The first one, DID Explained, was the video I showed earlier. DID for Devs is the Microsoft documentation around verified ID and how you can get started and issue credentials today. If you want some sample code, go to VC Sample. And if you want to have a play about and see what the onboarding experience is for your employees or even a university student, go to VC Demo. If you're interested in verifiable credentials and decentralized identity, please get in touch with the external identity team at CodeShare, and we can provide you a proof of concept or a discovery workshop. This will be tailored to your requirements. I did show some use cases that I thought of, but they might not be applicable to you. If you have a workshop with us, we can deep dive into what your requirements are and get expert advice on how verified ID can solve your problems. Of course, if you are interested in identity, I would highly recommend that you come along to our Microsoft Identity Roadshow in Manchester. It's free to attend, and there is keynotes in the morning, followed by workshops in the afternoon, and of course, networking, drinks, and food. This roadshow will cover the roadmap for identity and Microsoft Entra, privileged access and permission management in the cloud, the latest features in Azure AD and Verified ID, how to apply zero trust identity management principles, and cloud identity governance best practices. Thank you very much. And if you have any questions, please put them in the chat. So the first question is, how much of the benefits are depending on other organizations adopting this approach? It's a very good question. This can be in-house, fully in-house for your employees. As I said, there are certain processes such as join remover leavers. If you have multiple offices and you're not sure who that person is arriving at your door, you can use it that way. You can use it with partners, and if your partners wish to use your credentials, they will need to set up their verification process. I think as more companies embark on this, we will see much greater benefit and reusability across the platform. So the next question is, how far are we from being able to use a UK government ID to verify identities in order to demonstrate legal right to work? Again, a very good question. I don't have visibility of that today, although it does interest me, and I'm very much of the opinion that the government should get involved. It would allow us a lot more interesting scenarios if we had the ability to have a credential for a driving license or a passport. Given that verifiable credentials are tied to a physical device, phone, how can one's identity be recovered if their device is lost or stolen? Is it just a case of fallback to email address or SMS to re-verify? Again, brilliant question. If you're using the Microsoft Authenticator app, you can use the backup feature. They're not necessarily tied to a device per se. It all relies on the signature and the public key infrastructure. So it does does mean that it can be lifted into the cloud as a backup and then restored. However, if you can't do that or you don't back up your credentials, the issuer can revoke the credential that was issued and lost and reissue a new one. Just as if you were to lose a driving license, you would go to DVLA and ask for a new one. That verification process might be to reprove that you're eligible. What is the typical timeline to implement the solution for the large organization? Again, this does depend on what your requirements are. I would love to have a one-on-one discussion with you. There is a lot of nuances, and this is new technology. So it is about the understanding on how you're going to implement it and use it that does factor into how much time it takes to roll it out. You'd possibly be a perfect candidate for a nice POC. So when you're setting up access packages, can you request more than one verified credential? Yes. So once you're setting up the access packages, when you're selecting credentials from one or more issuers, the user will be requested to show them all at the same time. So it's not a one or other, it is a both. So that allows you to say, highly privileged app, you can say, are you a Coach employee and do you have security clearance? Provide both of those credentials, you've got access. So what is the underlying technologies in the trust system or public ledger? It's quite a good question. There is two types of decentralized identifiers. There's the decentralized identifiers web and the decentralized identifiers ION. The decentralized identifiers web version allows you to use typical DNS and HTTP based platform, and the decentralized identifier ION allows you to use a distributed ledger that is built on the blockchain. So if you think of how Bitcoin works and how its verification and ledgering system works, something similar to that. If you want to know more, there is a blog post on my LinkedIn. Feel free to have a look at that where I deep dive into those questions. Any other questions? I'll give it another 30 seconds. Well, thank you everyone for attending. If you do have any further questions, please feel free to reach out to me. My details are on screen. I would love to have more people asking questions about this, understanding what verified ID is, what decentralized identifiers are, and how it can help your industry. As I mentioned, we can offer you a POC or even a one-to-one session where we deep dive into your problems. We've seen a few questions here today, which would be perfect to have a nice little discussion on. So either reach out at hello@coacher.co.uk or email me directly at d.bolt@coacher.co.uk. Thank you very much.